The idea that I'm into tonight is that I have 100 decks. I hit 100 decks today. I didn't even realize I was about to do that. I have 100 decks. Says so, right there. And so what I'd like to do, even though this is an insane undertaking and will probably take way longer than I wanted to, or you wanted to, let's run through all of these to see what I cooked up this season and some of last season. And we will rank them, give them a letter grade. And we will destroy all the ones that I don't think are good enough, which will probably be more than half of them, if I had to guess. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get to it. We're not even 10 minutes in. We are 10 minutes into the stream officially. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into it because this is probably going to take time. So let's start with $5 Illuminator here. This is a holdover from last season. And I really, really like this deck. That's why I've kept it this entire time. Just $5 in paper to build. This probably a little bit more now because maybe Swift Spears, something like one of these cards has to be expensive, right? Like Electrostatic Infantry is like weirdly expensive. I don't know, but still a really cheap deck to build. And as far as $5 decks go, I don't know that you can do much better than this right now. It's your old Illuminator Virtuoso, Boon of Safety, Lauren's Escape 1/2. You got your Ancestral Anger to give the Virtuoso trample, right? You got Monastery Swiftspear as another creature to benefit from all these effects. You got Homestead Courage for your Virtuoso, right? And Electrostatic Infantry is kind of a 12th creature. If I was going to put anything else in this deck, it might be creature lands or maybe a 13th and 14th creature like a Kenra Spell Spear or whatever the thing is that can get prowess when you flip it over. But altogether, solid deck, and I have to give it, it's a good baseline deck to start the night with, right? I'll give this deck a C+. Yes, I think that's pretty good, and I will not destroy it. Here's Tatsunari Brawl. I'm not sure anybody really cares about the Brawl decks, but here it is real quick. Cool point about this, we get to play Meat Hook Massacre. It's not banned in Brawl, but this is actually a really fun deck, and I guess Brawl decks work on a different letter grade system than other decks, but I'm just going to give this like a solid B minus, something like that. And again, that's in the context of Brawl, but I really, really like this deck an awful lot. So, but you know me, I like Tatsunari. This is Ellis Brawl. This gets an S+, just because it's Ellis, but the deck actually isn't that great, Ellis does benefit from being a 2-mana commander in Brawl, but that's about all that you really get out of her. You know what I mean? But it's a fun deck. I always like Ellis, and I've had to objectively rank this deck. I would also give this somewhere around a B-. It's a cool deck to play, but let's get into some real decks. No, we can't. This is Zur in Brawl. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Zur Brawl right here. We got Eternal Wander and Leyline Binding over here behind my face, but I think we're almost done with the Brawl forest here because, sometimes I like playing Brawl, but if I had to rank Zur, this one's tough to play too, to be honest, because you have to keep Zur on the table. It's kind of hard. So, this one can be frustrating from time to time, so I'll give this one a C-. It hasn't been as fun as I want it to be. Mono Red Mouse is a deck that we played on stream at one point. It was actually really good as like a form of Mono Red, although not the strongest form of Mono Red. It's pretty good. It was pretty good. I think this deck is better than $5 Virtuoso, but not by much, I think it's slightly worse than Mono Red, which was obviously like an A deck, so let's give this deck a B. B+. Sure, something like that. And I'm not going to destroy it. I think it's my favorite Mono Red deck that I have right now, if I even have that many more. Mono White Ginger, so a Mono White Artifacts deck here that actually doesn't sacrifice that many artifacts and probably needs to be updated slightly with like Novice Inspector and stuff like that. But altogether, I think we played this one on stream too and had a good amount of fun and success with it. So I'd give this like a B- as well. You can win some games in the arena, but it's not going to be the best deck in the world. And I think you can even win off toxic damage from time to time. So it's kind of fun, right? But still, Seraph is a very good card. It is. And Sir Ginger shouldn't be a 4-of. Not at all in that deck. 16 lands, Mono Black is up next. You guys didn't get to see me play this deck. This deck's actually really fun. Updating this deck, it would probably get a couple of different 1-drops. I'm not sure Ashnod has to be in here or anything, but this is mostly a Gix deck taken to its logical extreme, right? Like tons of 1-drops, a lot of evasive 1-drops, like a Battlefly Swarm, as well as the 4-of Fairy Dream Thief. You got the Menace Okiba Reckoner Raid, 3 Duress to pull the sweepers out of your opponent's hands and the counter spells and stuff. Sugar Rush is in this deck. That's how aggro we want to be with this thing. So Sugar Rush is in our deck. I'm always trying Blade of the Oni out, you know me, and then Razor Last Transmogrant. Undersung card. There should probably be some number of Tenacious Underdog in this deck, but we went the full 4 of Razor Last Transmogrant. You really should do a split, but no Shieldred, no, nothing like that. Just 4 go for the throat, 2 cut down, a lot of small dudes. We got Colt Conscript for after sweeper shenanigans, Razor Slash Transmogran for after sweeper shenanigans, and then Gix to draw a bunch of cards. This is actually a really fun deck. You probably need more than 16 lands. We're obviously gaming the arena algorithm with this one, but I'll still give it like a B. This is a sweet little deck, is all I'm saying. Yeah, Mouse Tribal, we're going to get it. I cannot wait for Mouse Tribal, dude. Bloomburrow, I just can't wait for Bloomburrow, period. But up next is It Otters. Deck is bad. Most Is It decks that I've tried to build in this season are terrible. They're just really not good. I was hoping Frolicking Familiar would be fun. And it is fun, but fun doesn't always equal great. And whenever I'm building Is It nowadays, I'm like, you know, this slot would be better as anything other than Frolicking Familiar. So, yeah. I give this deck like a D+. You know, it looks like it should be better than it is. Any deck with like 4 of Monastery Swiftspear, 2 of Balmor, and then, you know, it's got the 3 Shore Up and stuff. You know, it's trying to protect its guy. Like, it should be better than it is, but it's not good. Mono blue mid-range, I build it every single season. Is it ever good? Not really. It's, you know, there's ways to update this one too. There should be more Field of Ruin and Mirrex and stuff. We're just running 23 islands and an Atara, but altogether, this deck felt a little better than it sometimes does. You know, Asinine Antics was not a terrible sweeper, but it's kind of a terrible sweeper. Invoke the Winds is always better than it looks. You know, just grab something is always an interesting answer. You know, Teferi is a good one of Planeswalker in the deck. Flow of Knowledge is a good one of, like, card draw piece. Horn Lockwhale is kind of very good. Ether Channeler's not great. Chrome Host Seed Shark is good. So I think that Mono Blue mid-range it's like starting to be able to run better cards than it's ever run. You know, but it's still not a great deck. I'm gonna have to give this one like a D+ too. Just Mono Blue mid-range is never great, but I should try to build it again. It's been a while now. Solar Flare up next, baby. I should probably delete that last deck. Solar Flare is up next. This is the old school, like, control reanimator deck. We've got 2 Invasion of Tilvada as our reanimator piece in here, and then the rest is control. You know, 3 Make Disappear. We haven't updated this for No More Lies yet, but 3 Make Disappear, cut down 3 Liliana, you know, some Sheldred's Edict, some Go for the Throat, so depopulate Sunfall. We are a control deck, but we also have ways, like Liliana specifically, Kaito Shizuki, even Celestis, of dropping like a Kaya or an Ashiok or something, a Vraska, an Eternal Wander, into our graveyard and then invasioning it out, you know. Plus, we've got Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, things that make tokens for the invasion to aid once it flips over. So, this is a fun deck, but Solar Flare just, it always seems like it should be good, but you're splitting hairs between control and reanimator, and you should probably devote yourself to one or the other of those strategies, right? Because you're going to have to go shields down to reanimate your guy, and then your opponent pounces with the best spell in Standard. So, you know, there's always an issue with Solar Flare nowadays. But I'm still going to give this deck like a B-. It's fun to play. Bye, Mono Blue Midrange. You're out of here. And so is It Otters. We gotta bite the bullet on Is It Otters, guys. I'm so sorry, my friend. Maybe once we get Bloomburrow, that'll be better too. Midlife. So this is this is a crisis of a deck. This one is kind of like a life gain mid-range deck before we got Amalia, right? So it's basically invalid at this point, and I would update it in a number of ways anyway. Like more Gix's Command is probably a plus, but this is still a fun deck back in the day. Steel Seraph and Phyrexian Fleshgorger, Archangel of Wrath, Sheoldred. These are great like mid-range life gain cards. So wanted to try it out, but I'm just going to give the deck like a C-. I do think that life gain needs to be one of those like machine gun, throw everything on your hand onto the table kind of decks. Orzhov midrange, 1. I'm sure there'll be more than 1 before we're all said and done here. This is actually kind of familiar to the last deck that we played, but instead of playing like tons of sweepers, we've just got the 3 Sunfall. We're playing, you know, creatures and bodies and stuff like Lauren, Tenacious Underdog, Wedding Announcement, Graveyard Trespasser, Lord Skitter, Sheoldred. So very much a mid-range deck, but I remember this deck too. Any Orzhov mid-range deck, I'm probably just going to give like a solid B to, because, you know, it can win games, but it can lose games. It's Orzhov. So the eternal plight of Orzhov. It's like good mid-range deck, but not the best mid-range deck. You know, it folds to control, so doesn't draw enough cards. It's classic Orzhov problems. Mardu midrange is up next. I believe I built this one because I built Orzhov midrange, and I just wanted to take Archangel of Wrath all the way. So there's like an Angel Fire Ignition in here, and then you got to play 4 Blood Tithe Harvesters if you go in red in Mardu, right? We've also got a Chandra because I'm dumb. You know, we're adding red. Why not a giant planeswalker in our mid-range deck? It might be good. But altogether, I'm always unimpressed with Mardu, despite the fact it's like my favorite 3-color combination. I have not been a fan of a Mardu deck I've built in too long, despite the fact that all these cards are good. Not a bad card in this whole bunch, but still, I give this one a solid B too. Mana problems are a thing. Decadent Dragon's not really a card, so much as I want it to be. 1,000 Moons is up next. This is an artifact, you know, sort of aggro-ish, sort of control-ish. This is the more control-y version, but we should play more sweepers in a deck like this. Temporary Lockdown, something like that. But I guess we have too many small-time artifacts, and we're playing like Glass Casket, so we don't want to lock down. But are a lot of artifacts, but this is another one. 1,000 Moon Smithy is another card that I'm really excited about. Was really excited about. Still am. I still like the card, but never impresses me. It always 1-for-1s and it just dirtles and dies, you know? So this one gets like a B-. There's got to be a way to build 1,000 Moons right now, but this in particular is not it. As much as I really want like Clay-Fired Bricks, Collector's Vault, Treasure Map, like Millennium Calendar, Candy Trail, these are all good, but they should all be in the deck in different numbers, very likely. Got another delete there. Boros Friends. This is a fun one, guys. This one is Boros Super Friends. It's just a bunch of Planeswalkers. You know, we take advantage of the fact that Farewell doesn't wipe Planeswalkers. So we play an Eternal Wander, a Chandra, 3 Quintorius because I really like this guy, Jaya, 2 Wandering Emperor. Probably should be like 3 or 4, right? Wandering Emperor, Wedding Announcement to protect our Planeswalkers. And then some card draw down here. Reckless Impulse and Ren's Resolve. Along with some removal, Get Lost, and Soul Partition. This deck was not good when I tried to play it. I think I ran up against a lot of aggro. This deck could be good, but I think you need to go down like 1 Urbrass Forge, both Soul Partitions, right? Add in stuff like Temporary Lockdown, take out this card draw, and put in maybe more reliable card draw, add an Emperor. So there's definitely ways to fix this old thing up, and I think I will, but I think I'm going to start from scratch. So let's delete Boros Friends. It was a fun deck, and I'll give it a B-, but, you know. Awakened Moon is up next. This is 1,000 Moon Smithy plus Abuelo's Awakening. It's bad. It's bad. You're trying to discard stuff to Collector's Vault and Restoration of Iganjo here in the early game. And then Abuelo's Awakening in like a Portal to Phyrexia or a Threefold Thunderhulk, right? Interesting that... I believe the way this works, yeah, the Threefold Thunderhulk, Abuelo's Awakening, you get back the Thunderhulk, and it comes into play with 3+1/+1 counters, because that's text on the card, right? So it doesn't matter that Abuelo's Awakening is only 4 mana, it only makes it a 1/1, it'll still get the +1/+1 counters. So pretty cool, little trick there, but, you know, Abuelo's Awakening is a card that I want to make work, and I just still haven't. You know, anything with Portal to Phyrexia is always, like, depressingly not as good as I want it to be. You know, this is another deck that could probably benefit from just some temporary lockdowns, come down on the candy trails, you know, so. But for now, giving it a C+. Just not super great, but I do want to keep it in the collection to remind myself of Abuelo's Awakening as a card. Black Burn is a deck that we played here on stream. I just want to play Corrupt. Any deck with Corrupt is also an S+, right? I'm pretty sure we know that. Oh, gift subs. I'll get to those when I finish up here. Who knows how long that'll be. Sorry. But thanks for the gift subs, guys. But yeah, this is Black Burn. We played it on stream. It's kind of fun. You know, Rankle's Prank, Sheoldred's Apocalypse, the Apocalypse. Bloodletter of Aclazotz, you know, increases our burn. We've got Corrupt along with Bloodletter for the ultimate combo. We've got Graveyard Trespasser for a little bit of burn. Okiba Reckoner Raid for a little bit of burn. Vron for some burns. This was a fun deck, man. I'm not going to delete this thing anytime soon. B. Solid B in reality for that one. Slow Tats is up next. The Slow Tats and RE deck in Standard. I can't remember if this is the one we played or not on stream, but either way, I want to love this deck, but don't, and it needs a major rehaul. There's no need for Huntsman's Redemption in this deck, right? Just looking at it first, straight away. There's no need for 3 Teachings of the Kira, and there's got to be stronger enchantments we can play in this. It probably needs some sweepers or something if we want to slow roll the opponent with like Painful Quandary and Glorious Sunrise, right? So I'm already not loving the construction of it, and I did like it when I played it. Why is Audacity in here? Super high curve, but, you know, not every deck can be a winner. I'm going to delete this one and give it a D+, probably. Fun doesn't mean good, right? Fast Sugiri. This is the inverse of Slow Tats. Oh yeah, we're trying to do like a food thing, right? It's a welcome to Sweet Tooth. It's still 2 Audacity, even though it's fast. Hopeless Nightmare. Okay, so it's just like really, really low curve. I barely remember this deck. I really do. We're playing Clawing Torment in here, Wicked Visitors, so we're Curse of Leeches. So we're trying to like ping out or drain out our opponent along with all the Tatsunari pings. This is tempting. I'm looking at this deck and I'm like, oh wow, I'm tempted to relive whatever 6-hour cycle I was on when I built this thing, but you know, just looking at it, did I ever even play this deck? I'm not sure that I got a chance to. I probably built it and looked at it and was like, no, you're bad, which is the same exact reaction I'm having right now. I give that's a D-. Let's get rid of you. I want to believe, but I just can't. Artifact Control Sun is up next. This is, oh yeah, the Cityscape Leveler, Threefold Thunderhulk, you know. This deck needs to be different. It needs to have, like, Portal Phyrexia and a little bit more ramp, like extra Mightstone, Weakstone. I know it's legendary, but it needs to, this deck just needs to be a little different. I need to stop putting Candy Trail in all my artifact decks, you know what I mean? So, this one was kind of bad. I just want Dragon Spark Reactor to be a card, and it's never a card. I gotta stop trying to make fetch happen. This deck is also a D-, and I have to kill it, and I'm sorry. I really want that card to be good. Tatsunari Brawl 2. Is it any different from the last Tatsunari Brawl deck? It's got Ashiok's Reaper. S. Yeah. There can only really be one of these, I think. So I will trust that the second time I built it was better, which is never a thing you should do. Kaya Brawl. It's just removal spells, right? Yeah, removal spell, removal spell, removal spell, removal spell, removal spell, removal spell, removal. Yeah, it's just S. It's an S tier Brawl deck. Absolutely. Zayatora Brawl up next. What are we doing here? Big guys? Yeah, big boys. Yeah. S. S in Brawl all day. Look at that. Look at that S tier Brawl deck. Seriously, that's actually criteria for Brawl. If it's nothing but 7 drops, it's a good Brawl deck. Joda Brawl. This is going to be bad. Yeah, this is terrible. This is not a good Brawl deck. Look at it. Look at it. It's just every legend in standard. F. that's an F right there if I had to say. If I had to grade it, it's we're holding that back. Oh, the secret. Yeah, this is 37 slimes and 23 forest. I will not delete this. I will never delete this. We're into definitely NKM decks at this point, by the way. S++. No, this deck's actually terrible. This deck is an F. It's not good. I tried it. It's bad. Matchbox 20, I want to push you around, baby. Yeah, we played this one on stream, and it was, like, fantastic. It's a phenomenal deck. It does need an update. You know, Jinji shouldn't be. We decided Jinji shouldn't be in the deck. Demand Answer should be a 3 of. You should probably add, like, a 4th Go for the throat and a 4th Make Disappear, something like that. So, you know, maybe a Cut Down or something to keep him from breathing down your neck. You know, another Sweeper or something like that. But it was a good deck, man. We won some games with it. You can Vein Ripper off a push-pull and, like, 20 your opponent. Good times, dude. Good times. Let's give this deck a B+. It was too fun. You really should put Hidetsugu and Kairi in your Grixis push-pull deck, though. Mono Blue Filchinum. Filchinum. This deck gets better every time I build it, and this is the first time I built it, so C-. The deck's always fun, and it's always, like, kind of similar, you know, to the last time I built it. This is a Tomik deck. We were building this for Patreon, but never really got picked, and I believe this is the first build. There might be multiple builds of this deck, but this deck is fine. You know, Deep Cavern Bat, Soul Search in the 2-drop slot, so you have both of those cards, and then no matter what's on curve after those, you can just do whatever you want, because your opponent doesn't have any good cards, you know, so that means stuff like Sarah Paragon and Shieldred will land and stay on the board a little bit better. I liked this deck, but, you know, it's an Orzhov mid-range deck, so I can't really go higher than a B on it. Some are better than others, right, but Orzhov midrange is Orzhov midrange. Here's a call deck. There's probably a bunch of these. I think there's like 3 or 4. This one is kind of a tokensy, control-y build. We're playing Lightning Helix. We're playing Sunfall in this deck. So we're trying to take advantage. We're playing Brotherhood Zen too. So we're trying to take advantage of like Urbrass Forge, Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, Stensia Uprising, all these cards that like create tokens. We got connecting the dots in here, by the way. Just the one of, the fun of. Takasi's Welcome as a 1-up to draw some cards. This deck is always good. I try to build it like once a season. Once we got Warleader's Call, I went for it, but Warleader's Call was the worst card in the deck. It always is the worst card in the deck when I've tried to build it this season, but I'm still going to give this deck a B-. Like, it's a solid deck. But I don't know if I'd like try to go to Mythic with it or anything. Zayatora pull. Played this one a lot in my off time. This one's really, really fun, guys. 2 Brotherhood's End and 3 Deadly Cover Up. They go for the throat. Keep stuff off your board, off your throat. You know, Throat Goat, keep stuff off your throat. We've got Invasion of Ergamon and Jewel Thief to help ramp us into the push-pull. But not a whole lot to discard to aside from the big score. But the big score, we can, you know, discard the Trumpeting Carnosaur to itself, right? We can discard just the Galta to something, to the big score, right? And then pull the Galta into play. And then drop like Tyrannax Rex, Itali, Zayatora, Trumpeting Carnosaur, whatever, off the Galta. And that's just a super big time play, dude. This deck is always fun. Zayatora is a really fun card, dude. If he sticks the turn he's out and you have like any other creature in play, he's freaking phenomenal. Just set your mana up for the rest of the game. Really like Zayatora, dude. But I can't give this deck more than like a B either. I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing the deck, but it is really fun. Roots 3 is up next. Built a bunch of Roots deck. This one's kind of stock. This one's like super, you know, close to the normal Roots deck that you've been seeing like most of standard from almost everybody. And with that in mind, I'm going to give the deck a B. Deck gets a B, right? Right? Probably. Simic Artifacts. This is a fine deck. Zoetic Glyph is just a hell of a drug, you know what I mean? So we need more Subterranean Schooner, and now I do have more. So I'm going to go ahead and add them? Nah, I'm not. I'm not going to do it because that'll mess up like the whole deck order and everything, so I'm just not going to do it. But yeah, Disruption Protocol is like another reason that you play blue in these artifact decks. Spyglass Siren, Wanted Trout, Case the Filch Falcon, all that stuff. Teething Wormlet is the reason you play green in these decks, you know. So this is another deck where I need to take out as many Candy Trails as I'm playing. Probably just need to play like 2 if I'm playing any. And then take out Eater of Virtue. There's definitely better ways to use these slots, you know. Like even just Fading Hope would be probably a better way to use these slots, but we got to have more Schooners and stuff too. So not even sure Gala Greeters is where we want to be. You know, maybe Teething Wormlet's the only green card in the deck, right? But either way, I need more Agatha's Soul Cauldron too. Do I have 3 mythics? I do. I could get all 4 Soul Cauldrons right now. Got to remember that. But anyway, I'm gonna give this deck a B-. It's fun to play, but it's a little bit fragile. Discard changes. All right, Bant Slimes is up next. So this is the Control Slime Against Humanity deck. This has 12 Slimes Against Humanity. It also has O'Hare Pagpatic to rebound the slime spell. I thought that would be very cute. The problem is it's too cute. It's far too cute. The real problem with this deck, though, is that we're trying to do the control thing, right? Where we have like Sunfall, Farewell. We've got Colossal Sky Turtle and Shigeki. That's a fun one because Shigeki can channel to get back like 4 Slime Against Humanities at the same time. You know, super late game. Cast them all. So that's cute, but again, it's all too cute. We're playing like Otherworldly Gaze, Philology Archaeologist, Blanchwood Prowler, Teachings of the Kirin to put like slimes in our graveyard, so when we do cast one, it's bigger. But we really need to devote these slots to like removal and card draw and the traditional stuff a control deck wants. I still think we can play 12 to 14 slimes and be fine with it, right? So I want to revisit this deck. I think I was all over the place with it. I was trying to get a good statted slime too quickly in the game for a control deck. I think the deck is a little at odds here, and I'm going to give it an F for now. But I do think that this deck could be updated for sure. This is Low Curve Ellis, our first Ellisdale core deck of the night. This one's got a lot of legends in it. Ratadrabic is in here to help take advantage of that. Delny has a 1-up to get the double triggers. Gix, Teysa, Amalia, Vron, Bartolome, Ellis, Skrelv, tons and tons of legends in the deck. There probably should be the full 4-up Plaza of Heroes, but I didn't like this deck. It has no real removal outside of Rite of Oblivion, and that just can't be done right now. So I'm going to give this deck a C-. As much as I love Ellis and legends and stuff. It's just... Ratadrabic is not the dream you want it to be. It almost never is. This is Life Angels. We played this on stream, and it was very good, and it was a very good deck, actually. It turns out mid-range Flyers and Shieldred, just fine. It's fine. Life Gain base, you know, it's a fine little deck, you know. I'm going to have to give this one a B+. Which is a really high grade, but I really liked this deck a lot. I think that Giada, Inspiring Overseer, Amalia, Gumdrop Poisoner, they're all better cards than people think they are right now, so pretty high grade on that one. Life Gain is just the name of this deck, just Life Gain. So we've got 2 Ellis of Core, 2 Amalia, 4 Voice of the Blessed, Extraction Specialist, Gumdrop Poisoner. Yeah, it's just the Life Gain. This is the stock Life Gain deck list from earlier this season before it went a little bit lower on the curve. Didn't play as many Case, though, nowadays. But still, this is a pretty good representation of the Life Gain list from earlier this season, and it's fine. B plus. I still really like playing this deck from time to time, but different versions of it, right? Judy Brawl, another Brawl deck. I was so disappointed with Judy, dude. This deck needs more cards that, return her to the battlefield if she would die. There's a couple of black cards in Standard like that right now. And this deck really, really needs those, or it just cannot function because Judith dies the turn she comes out. You might be able to, on 6 mana, like Judith into Festivities, Judith into Tectonic Hazard or something, blow up your opponent's team, and that's always a good move, but even that doesn't feel powerful enough sometimes. So I was disappointed in this. I really wanted to like it, and there's a lot of cool tricks in it and stuff for getting imps and whatever. Sacking imps and doing damage, but it's just not the deck I want it to be. 5 mana commander, even in Brawl, is not great. Unless your name is Voha. So I'm going to give this deck like a D-. It's really sad because I like Judy. I'm not going to delete her. Jeskai Counterburn, our first deck tech of the season, and this is a slightly different version of it. It doesn't have the red virtues in it that ended up in the final version of the deck, but still a pretty faithful representation of what I was trying to do with Jeskai Counterburn, and a pretty good deck altogether. I think there's different ways to build it than I built it here. Maybe you need one hard counter, maybe you need less Farewell in the main deck. Maybe you need less Chandra in the main deck, right? More Wandering Emperor. So again, there's different ways to build this deck in real time, but almost no matter which way you build it, it's a deck that can put up a fight. So I'm going to give this one a B+. I thought it was a really solid deck to start the season off with. It's also Dumb Burn. This is a Dumb Burn deck that just burns your face off with Dumb Burn cards. So dumb it plays Invasion of Regatha. That's how dumb our deck is. 4 Lightning Helix, 3 Heartflame Duelist, 4 Lightning... Did I say... Yeah, 4 Lightning Strike, 4 Shock, 4 Play with Fire. Monster Wave Swift Spear, we got Burn Down the House in here. Brotherhood's End is like sweepers because we have burn spells, right? So the sweepers let us point the burn spells at our opponent's face, more likely. This deck is not good. I haven't built a good burn deck this season, although I do still think there's like a low curve burn deck out there that's halfway decent, but this isn't necessarily it. Also, Arena likes to line you up with like something life gain, like every time you play burn. So it doesn't even have to be life gain, just a deck that gains a lot of life. And that's annoying. So I'm going to give this deck a C. So just a straight up C. Barely passes. Am I going to erase this? No. George Clooney is up next. Played this one on stream. This deck was okay. We won some games with it, but again, Thousand Moon Smithy. We went a little bit more aggressive than I usually do with Thousand Moons this time around. And Zoetic Glyph was an all-star. Michiko's Rain was an all-star. It was a fine deck, but I can't give it more than a C+. Maybe a B-, somewhere in that territory. But I'm not going to erase it. Blue-White Artifacts was fine, dude. Clue Aristocrats. Going all in on the clues with Homicide Investigator and Teysa in this deck. This was okay. One of the big holes in Aristocrats is that it doesn't draw any cards. It also needs to draw cards in order to hit its land drops to get to this Vein Ripper, right? We got this huge hole in our curve from 3 to 6, but is it worth playing Vein Ripper? Ultimately, I don't think in like a lower to the ground version of the deck it is worth playing Vein Ripper. This deck plays like Case of the Uneaten Feast and stuff like that, which is super low to the ground. So Vein Ripper was always kind of tough to get to in this thing, but being able to draw more cards is always good for Aristocrats. I'm going to give this one a solid C. Not super great, and again, Vein Ripper was kind of a dead card like way too often. So, but still okay. Still okay. More life gain. There's only so many of those we can go through, right? There's another mid-rangey life gain list. This one plays the Archangel of Wrath, which wasn't in the last list. Case of the Gateway Express is a one of in here. Trying it out. So Resplendent Angel is in this deck because it's in the latest set. So makes sense we wanted to try that out too, right? But altogether, I can't give just normal life gain more than a B, something like that. Nice Tamikyu, I believe, is the final version of the Tomik deck that we tried to present for Patreon, but I was just never as into it as they were other projects. This one wasn't final, though. The one in my notebook is more final. It's got more Archangels and more Wandering Emperors in the main. It does not have this card, Make Your Move, in the main deck. It's moved to the sideboard. I wanted to try this one out. But the Soul Searches, the Deep Cavern Bat, the Novice Inspector, Get Lost is a 2 of in the final version. I don't know why it's just a 1 of here. There's more removal in the final version, period. Oh, because we're not playing Virtue of Loyalty. And we're not playing Gix's Command in the main deck. Although I think we should do... I think that the Gix's Command in the main is correct in current standard. But still, this is a fine deck, dude. Tomik is very good. Cover Go Blue has done some work with this card this season. Made it look pretty good. Over on, I believe, the official Magic the Gathering channel, he played a Tomik deck, and just... Tomik looks like a strong card, dude. It's because he is. really hard for your opponent to attack into you, especially if you've been attacking into them that game, because, you know, you're really pressuring their life total. They can't attack into you. Plus, he gives you cards. I like Tamik. I'll give this deck a B. It was good. Where are we? Dailies was a mono black dailies deck, because I guess at some point I forgot that I had 16 lands. This just plays a bunch of creatures and Gix and Children. Pretty good. Probably give it around the same score I gave the 16 lands deck, like a B, you know, somewhere around there. Interrogators. This is the combo deck that gets 4 persuasive interrogators, or, you know, plays 4 persuasive interrogators. Tries to sack all the clues to Bart once it's got an interrogators in play, and just wins through poison damage, through toxic damage. It's not good. This deck is really bad. It's so... God, this deck is bad. I'm not sure that I won a game with this deck. There were a couple of setups that I had where, like, I hit record on my laptop thinking that I was going to get a good clip for Twitter or something like that. And then I still got blown out anyway. So, deck, I really want this deck to be good, but it just... This incarnation of it is not. Because I'm pretty sure Interrogator is just not a very good card. In Standard, at least. So, give this deck a D-. Something like that. It should be an F, but... I like the idea too much. This is a mono blue dailies deck, so it's just a mono blue deck. You see how it's just mono blue? How it's kind of the mono blue tempo deck? What do you give mono blue tempo, especially when dev builds it in a really weird way that it's not supposed to be built? C. I think you give it a C. The first Hidetsugu deck, the Jund Hidetsugu deck, when we were trying to determine whether or not Hidetsugu Consumes All was a good card, and then finally determined that it was in fact a good card. So, this deck was fine, dude. I like a lot of these cards right now in the format, right? Like Breach and Natali, Virtue, Gix's Command. Atsushi is a surprisingly decent card against anything not packing Sunfall. Shouldred's always good, so it's just a deck that plays a lot of good cards and adds Hidetsugu. And we had fun with both of these decks, dude. So I'm going to give this one probably a B, something like that. Mardetsuru here, the Mardu Hidetsugu deck. This one gets to play Wandering Emperor and Sunfall. Those are just good cards. Those are upgraded cards from the green version in most ways, but I'm still going to give this one a B. Right out of B. Not deleting either of these decks either. Oh, I should delete more life gain. I haven't deleted a deck in too long. We got to get rid of some of these. Should also get rid of mono black dailies because 16 lands is just going to be better, right? Abzan Control. I'm always disappointed by non-blue control every time. Every time I build it. This deck has so many sweepers too. White Sun's Twilight, 3 Path of Peril, 4 Sunfall, a Deadly Cover-Up, a Farewell, you know, 2 Vanquish the Horde. Just all sweepers. Plus March, Get Lost, Children's Edict, Tear Asunder, you know, Assassin's Trophy. We're going all the way. Wandering Emperor. Just every card is a removal spell. Virtue of Persistence, you know. Kaya can remove stuff. So every card in the deck minus Celestis removes stuff. And I guess up the Beanstalk. But this is not the best Abzan deck that I feel like I've built in the last couple of seasons, but it's still somewhat good. We're trying to win off creature lands for the most part. That's why you see like Restless Fortress and Restless Cottage in here. But I think if you're just trying to play a deck that plays tons of removal spells and stack interaction and wins off creature lands, just play blue-white. That's what Azorius Control does, and it's good. So, I don't know. Outside of Kaya, there's really not a whole lot of reasons to want to play this. I guess you get to play Assassin's Trophy. That's a good card. Not deleting it. Orzhov Ramp is awesome. This is an awesome deck. We're just trying to ramp into a Kaya. And along the, you know, we also get, you know, 2 Path to Peril, 2 Temporary Lockdown, 4 Sunfall. So, like, tons of sweepers in the deck. We get to play cards like Sheldred and stuff. But still, with, like, Ironcrag, Celestis, we get to ramp into Kaya in some form or fashion. There's only a couple of these cards in the deck, but there's also Treasure Map, which is a sneaky way to ramp into Kaya. If you Treasure Map every turn for the first few turns, it's out. Then suddenly you're getting to Kaya like relatively fast. And you've also got a card draw engine, so I like Treasure Map, but you know, B. Orzhov midrange. B. Zayator pull 2. How different are you? Only 2 push pull this time. Is that to make room for Cruelty of Gix? Sure. It's like the only different card in the deck, except for Treasure Map and Riveteer's Charm. I'll give this one a B too. 5 color Aristocrats, everybody. It's bad. It's a terrible deck. Another sort of legendary Aristocrats deck that plays Aristocrats on the bottom end. You see, it's Aristocrats, and then surprise, Joda. Joda out of Noah. It's out of nowhere, Jodair. It's not a good deck though. I'm gonna give this an F. It's not. Don't play it. It was a super dumb idea, but I'm allowed to have those. It's kind of my job to have those. Esper Robbery up next. Just straight up Esper Control that tries to win off of Outrageous Robbery as just a 2 of. This deck's not as good. It's not good. Because you have to compare it to like Esper or just blue-white control, and it's not good compared to those decks. You can theoretically beat those decks with Robbery and Jace, right? So maybe you've got some positioning involved there, but it's still not as good as I wanted it to be. I'm just going to give this deck like a B-. It's kind of poopy. I'm going to get rid of it. I think that we can do better in terms of like Robbery decks. Because I do like Robbery. I think it's a fun card. Mono Black Discard. Good deck. Good deck right here, everybody. This is a fine one. Take a look at it. A lot of people have been playing some version or another of this. I don't think that you need the Raven Man. I don't think that you need Virus Beetle. So, like, there's definitely cuts in this deck. Maybe just play more sweepers. Or, you know what I mean? Just do that instead of playing all these creatures on the bottom end. Just rely on Sheldred, Acklazotz, and stuff. You know, your Virtua Persistence, Creature Lance, sticking Liliana and your opponent scooping. There's ways to beat, to win games without playing these tiny creatures that don't do enough, to be honest. So, as far as Mono Black discard decks go in that context, I'm gonna give it a C+. But this is a good deck right now. Like some iteration of it is good. New Dog Old Gix played it on stream. Pretty good deck. Didn't get to dank jank it. I think we played two decks that night, and the other deck made it to dank jank. But we did pretty well with this one. Just a stock kind of build of Gix in blue-black. You know, you've got your counter spells in the form of Spell Pierce rather than Make Disappear in this one. You've got Ledger Shredder, which not every blue-black deck leans on nowadays, but you know, it's mostly a version of blue-black. I wanted to play Snarling Gorehound in a deck like this and see how it combined with Gix to like fix draws, draw cards and stuff. Evasive creature with Gix, whatever. So, wanted to try it out. It was a fun deck. Let's give it a B. I give a lot of decks B's. Spirit Sisters, Bubby, another Orzhov deck. You see, I like Orzhov, but this deck is a mess. The idea is that you have to play a bunch of different, permanent types, because with Spirit Sisters Call, you can like sack a Liliana and get back a Kaya. You know, it seems good. You can sack the Clue token from Novice Inspector and get back a Portal to Phyrexia or Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. All seems good, but it's really hard to get in a position where you can just drop Spirit Sisters Call and it's fine, and it resolves and it doesn't die and whatever. So you know. Either it gets countered or besaged or something, right? So it just hasn't been the best deck. I'm going to give this one like a C-. It's, you know, especially when you compare it to all the other Orzhov decks that I have in my collection right now. Like Triumph, we played this on stream. I think this is what made the dank jank, but it's one of my least viewed dank janks of the season. And I can see why. You know, we're playing with a season-old card in this deck. There's not a whole lot of new cards, if any. So I can see why people were not as turned on by it as some stuff. But this is just your standard like Invasion of Tovada, get back Portal or Kaya or Phyrexian Flesh Gorger or something. And it did well. So I'll give this a B. I think it's worth a B. Delny Midrange. This is the version of the standard Delny deck that was on the Patreon poll this season. You're trying to Delny to, you know, double up them triggers, baby. So we got Deep Cavern Bad in the deck, the best thing to double trigger in standard right now. And you get it on turn 4. You just take the other two cards out of their hand. Some of the cards don't work the way you want them to, like Homicide Investigator and Vron. They do not double trigger. They only trigger once per turn. Rite of Oblivion is broken in this deck. It's El core deck, obviously. One Bartolome. Turns out you don't really need to sacrifice stuff as much as you want to. Double triggers off of Gorehound, Crawling Chorus, and Novice Inspector. So pretty low to the ground sort of Delny deck here that I liked, but can't give more than like a C+. The deck needed work. As a matter of fact, you done. Let's look at Legendary Aristocrats here. This one actually performed a little bit better, but was still not as good as I wanted it to be. The deck does not need this Fane Ripper. Not at all. But Ratadrabic and Ratadrabic and Delny is an interesting combination, to say the least. You know, so really cool. It just double triggers. It just does give you two 2/2s whenever a guy dies. Well, no, it's not that. It's not that Ratadrabic double triggers. It's that everything else double triggers. And then when the 2/2s you get from Ratadrabic come into play, then you get double triggers off those two. So it's stupid, but you know, Ratadrabic never works the way you want it to. C+. C+, buddy. I'm gonna keep it though. It's fun. Red Dailies. So we got a Cacophony Scamp deck right here. This was fine. These decks are always fun, but I feel like I'm always losing with these kind of like straight up, not even Bogles decks, just like win on turn 3, full on assault. I better go first or I lose. I never loved these, so I'm gonna give it a C-, something like that. I'm gonna trash it too. One thing, this is an imported deck, a red-black deck that I feel like is one of the best decks in all of Standard. I really, really do. This is a phenomenal deck right here. And I'm going to give it a A. This is the first A because I didn't build it, right? At first, I didn't build this one, and I know that it was very good. And it plays really well, even in best of one. So I'm going to give this deck an A. take a screenshot now. It's really, really good. Moving on, I probably should play like Trumpeting Carnosaur or something if I had to like add one card to it. Normal Virtuoso up next, son. This one is a normal Virtuoso deck with Illuminator Virtuoso and Water Wings, which is disgusting with Illuminator Virtuoso because it gives Virtuoso base power and toughness 4/4. Not to mention any +1/+1 counters he has. He probably has one just because you targeted him with Water Wings. He's getting in for 10, baby. It's a really stupid card. Just really, if your opponent tries to target Virtuoso with anything when you come in with him during combat, Water Wings, Hexproof, Flying, 4/4. It's very dumb, dude. So, as far as tempo decks go and Bogle's decks in Standard, I don't like hardly any of them, but Illuminator Virtuoso has a special place in my heart. I'll give this deck a B-. Moving on to Poison Virtuoso. Deck is a little bit too all over the place. It tries to kill them with Poison or Virtuoso. I figured that would be a two-pronged attack. Turns out that it just weakens both prongs. You really should have one strong prong, as they say. So I'm just going to give this one like a C. It's not good. I'm not going to get rid of it, though. I think there's promise. Abzan Man lands. Yet another just like full-on, I play a bunch of sweepers. And also creature lands. And also cease and desist in this version. I'm going to delete this version of the deck. Once again, I think that the other versions I built are better. Vampires is actually kind of a sick deck right now. I wanted to build this because I believe, was it? Yeah, Pioneer. Huge Pioneer tournament was won by Vampires. So, unless it was Modern. Was it Modern? I think it was Pioneer. It was won by Vampires. Seth Manfield won that tournament. So, I wanted to build it in Standard, and it's fine. It's fun, but it's just fine, and it's typal aggro, and you'll lose games. Voldaran Thrillseeker, as always, is a massive all-star. Vampire's Vengeance is crazy in certain matchups. In best of one, I want it in my deck. I want more Preacher of the Schism for the deck, right? So, there's definitely some holes here, but altogether, I think this Play with Fire should probably be cut down. You know, there's things to do with it, but I'm going to give it like a C+. You know, as far as typal decks go, it's all right. Sellsword Scamp is up next. Another Scamp deck, but this one red-black so that we can play Callous Sellsword. And just like, if we can't get in with the Scamp, right, we can just sacrifice the Scamp, deal damage equal to its power effectively twice, and win games that way. We also have Antagonize in this deck, +4/+3 till end of turn for 2 mana. It's really, really good on like Swift Sphere and Scamp and stuff when it gets let in. So, cool deck, but you know, mono red, all-in Bogles, not as good as I ever wanted it to be. Another deck, though, where Thrillseeker was an all-star. So, I'm going to give this one like a C+, something like that. And I'll keep it. Rakdos Burn. Boy, I got addicted to this deck. I made a Twitter post about this one and how much that I, actually liked it. I was literally addicted to this deck for like a whole 4 days. I couldn't play anything but it. So I'm going to give this deck a B+. There are games where it just like poops out and you empty your hand and you get crapped. You get crapped on like turn 3 or 4. And your opponent turns things around and you can't win after they turn the corner. It's going to happen with decks like this from time to time, but it's kind of a burn deck, 4 Hopeless Nightmare, 4 Akiva Reckoner Raid, 4 Kumano Faces Kakazan, 4 Play with Fire, 4 Epicure, 4 Lightning Strike, just like so much burn in this deck, and then Gix to help refill our hand. Voldaran Thrillseeker, again an all-star to like, hit them. It's just another card that hits them for burn damage to the top, so often helps finish them off too. Fully support the Thran Portal in this deck. By the way, we need untapped lands and stuff like this because we're just going to use all of our mana every turn for the first 3 or 4 turns. So I highly recommend trying to jam some games with this deck, but I wouldn't expect it to be better than a B or a B+, to be honest. But it's fun. It is so fun to play a deck like this, dude. It feels like playing Modern, but Standard, man. Power level in Standard's really high right now. Gruul Enchantments is a deck that I built because that last deck was so fun, and I was like, ooh, I wonder about Gruul Enchantments right now. I just really wanted to build like super low to the ground, like 20+ 1-drop decks. This deck is bad, though. This deck was really bad. I felt like Generous Visitor, Calming of Transients, Monastery Swift Spear, nothing but non-creatures aside from that. All enchantments, maybe we play Hammerhand in this thing. That used to be a decent card. Not good. Not a good card. Not a good deck. It's not good. Royal Treatment, Tyvar Stand, Protect Our Guys. Not good. Don't do it. Bogle's decks are just not good. They're not. Good. Huntsman's Redemption shouldn't be in here, by the way. Just throwing that out. Just never should be in anything. C- for Gruul Enchantments, but you should try it. Green-White Control, the mysterious Bant control deck. This was on the Patreon poll, too, this season. Labeled as a Selesnya control for a long time because the only blue card in the deck is Colossal Sky Turtle. So this is effectively Selesnya Control. This is another deck I got super addicted to this season. This deck is great. You know why? Nissa. Nissa's awesome, dude. Nissa, once this card lands, it is really hard for a lot of decks to deal with it. The -1 destroy an artifact or enchantment mode is so good. It's so good. And like, even if you play it for 5 mana, right? It's on 4 loyalty when you plus it, so you get a 4/4, then a 5/5, then a 6/6. If you play it on 7, you can get an 8/8 the turn it comes into play, then a 9/9, 10/10. No one can deal with that, dude. Late in the game, you got a couple of creatures and some forests. You win the game when you resolve this card. So Nissa's so good, dude. I don't know why more decks aren't playing it. We also have Tyrannax Rex in here to end games. Just comes down in end games. Buried in the Garden is the card that made me want to build this deck in the first place. It is actually surprisingly good. Ramp plus removal on one card. Awesome. Sunfall, temporary lockdown for our sweepers, right? Glimpse the Core for the ramp. Celestis for the ramp. Buried in the Garden for the ramp. We've got March, a phenomenal card right now. And then a bunch of other removal. Destroy Evil, Fateful Absence, Get Lost, blah, blah, blah. So Shigeki loops with Sky Turtle to get back all of our sweepers and Buried in the Garden and stuff like that. So this deck was great. This deck was fun. There are matchups you're not going to win. I mean, it's just every deck. I'm not going to lie to you, but you should try it out. Take your screenshot now. This is one of the decks I suggest the most. I will give it a B+. I was surprised by how good this deck performed. You know, it doesn't draw cards very well, but it draws good cards. That's, you know, like almost every card in the deck is something you want to draw even into the late game, which matters. But moving on to a bevy of Joda decks that are all bad. I wanted to build Joda with wizards because Joda is a wizard. So what are our legendary wizards in Standard? A bunch of terrible creatures. This deck gets an F. We have to play Wrath and Sten and Ludwig. Deck's bad. So let's give that deck an F and go ahead and give it the axe. We got humans, Joda humans, probably the best way to play Joda right now, but I still don't like this deck, I really don't. Halana and Elena, you know, Catilda, Hajar, Malira, these are all good humans. Thalia and your 36 creature deck, you know. These are all good cards. Urtai, Lauren for some removal and tempo and stuff. Lagrea for some removal. The deck looks solid on paper, but always has mana problems, you know, nothing you can do about it. It's even with the removal creatures, it still doesn't remove enough creatures, you know. By the time you get Joda, you have like one dude out half the time, if that. I don't like Joda right now, like at all. It can be fun, but you have to get just the right matchup, and that doesn't happen enough. So I'm gonna give this deck like a D-. Could be better, but if I'm keeping a Joda deck, it's that one. This is yet another Jodo Aristocrats deck. Apparently I had the same high idea twice. It's just never good. It isn't a good deck. Don't do it too soon. If you think you're going to trick your opponent, like, oh, whoops, it's Joda. It's not. It's not good. It just isn't as good as you want it to be. I will give it an F. I'm sorry, Ellis. Jeskai Smithy, probably the best Thousand Moon Smithy deck that we built this past season. Because it's actually halfway decent, man. Not as many artifacts in this build, which is kind of the secret to building a decent Thousand Moon Smithy deck. I would take the Braided Net out of here. I don't think Braided Net is a very good card. I just don't. I'd rather have a hard counter or even No More Lies or another removal spell or something like that. You know, just relying on Candy Trail, Millennium Calendar, Clay-Fired Bricks, Glass Casket, Spring-Loaded Saw Blade's a good card, Treasure Map, Celestis, Urbrass Forge, Cryptic Coat. These are all, like, not embarrassing to play artifacts for the most part, you know? And I think we need to stick to those and not play bad artifacts. We play good artifacts. So take out the Braided Net, you know, and maybe put in just some more removal. The deck always needs more removal, but altogether, I'm going to give it a B-. It's not bad. Flash is up next. Built this for tempo, and it's not good. It turned out not to be as good as I want it to be. I think it's just, you know, Errant Giada is not a very good card. Spectral Adversary is just fine. Not as good as you want it to be. Elspeth Smite doesn't have enough like shots in this deck. You know, Kutzel's Flanker's not as good as you want it to be. Quick Study's not the best piece. So I'm just going to give this deck a C- as well. I think that it can win some games, but it's not the best. Mono White Artifacts is another Thousand Moon Smithy deck. Yeah, I like that card. This is kind of more what I was talking about earlier. You know, a deck that needs to play Mono White Artifacts, but we need Portal. We need more Mightstone. We have that here. We're also playing Invoke Justice, which I was excited about when I put this deck together, and it's bad. It's never a good spot for it. Like, almost ever is never a good spot. We've got Collector's Vault and Network Terminal and Celestis to help us discard cards in the deck. But I just there's never something I want to invoke Justice. I don't have creatures that take advantage of the +1/+1 counters, so I don't know. The deck just seemed awkward all the time, but I'll give it a C- as well and keep it. Abzan Walkers, kid. You know, I really wanted to build a deck with a Johnny Sleeper Agent, see if he was any good with a bunch of Walkers. Worst card in the deck is a Johnny, it turns out. It's how it always is, man. But this is a fun deck. It turns out a lot of people just aren't that equipped to deal with Planeswalkers at the moment. If you can sweep them and then land a safe Planeswalker, you know, decks like Boros can get back on board quickly and come at you with the haste and end your game, or just end your Planeswalker or whatever. So you're not super safe, but if you can safely land a Planeswalker against a lot of decks right now, it's game. So if you get 2 or 3 out, there's problems. You know. So one thing I might change is maybe Wedding Announcement or something to help protect the Planeswalkers, but we've got lots of sweepers like Temporary Lockdown to populate Sunfall, right? So that's how we're trying to do it here. Altogether, I think we probably could just take out a Planeswalker or 2 and add more Marches or, you know, something else for defense, another Go for the Throat, right? But altogether, interesting deck, but it's not that interesting, you know? It's not. It just turns out you can't play all the cards you want to in this deck, or it's like 80 cards. But altogether, it was fine. I'll give this deck a B. We are closing in on it now. Golgari Stompy, everybody. This deck is fun, dude. I just wanted to play Nissa in like a creature deck because I've been playing her in a control deck. And it turns out it's great. This deck is fun, man. Again, there's matchups you're going to lose, but Deep Cavern Bat into Gix is a good like start to the game, you know. Or Deep Cavern Bat into Sentinel. These are good starts to a game of Magic. And then you can bridge the gap with Sheldred. You've got Aquazotz and Gix's Command is awesome, like mid-game cards. And then late, you're going to start like playing and drawing stuff like Nissa to just blow them out. You know, if you've got creatures on the board, you win. But if you don't, you just start putting like huge guys on the board. So, you know, there are some things I might change with this. I don't think this is the perfect deck for Gala Greeters, but altogether, I had a lot of fun playing this deck. I'm going to give it a B+. It was a good one, man. Enchanted is up next. This one is just mono white enchantments. Catilda, the mono white one, and then Hallowed Haunting. Not good. 1-for-1's too much. It needs more removal than just Sunfall, like more, you know, real removal. I guess you've got Temporary Lockdown, and here is a 4 of. But I just felt like I got stuck a lot with this deck. I really do. I didn't play a whole lot of games with it, but it's still, you know how you play like 6 games with the deck and you're like, well, this doesn't feel great right now, you know, where we are in the format. That's kind of how this deck was. So I'm just going to give this deck like a C, something like that. I think it needs less, like fewer Hallowed Haunting would make it better immediately. Mono Black Aggro, another one of these, just another Gix deck that plays like Sheldred. We got Gix's Command, so the curve keeps getting higher and higher whenever I make Mono Black Aggro. This is the best one that I built this season, though. In terms of Mono Black Aggro, this is the best one I built this season. I think it needs even more Gix's Command. I think that 2 Gix's Command is what you want to play in NBA right now, but altogether, B+, dude. Mono Black Aggro is a very strong deck. Gix is a very strong card, and once they've dealt with that, they got to deal with your Sheldred. So, and then by then, you're getting Virtue out, and they got to deal with that. Phyrexians we played on stream, it was just kind of fine. Deck did well in testing, and then on stream, it was kind of like 50-50. So I'm going to give this one a C+. It's a fun creature type to play right now. Where are we? Okay, yeah, Orzhov Life Gain up here. Yet probably the last Life Gain deck of the night. This one tries to utilize Homicide Investigator and stuff, and that's about the only real difference. A little bit of sacrifice stuff like Corrupted Conviction, right? 1 Skrelv to protect the Legends. So I don't know. I'll give this one like a C+. I think that probably loses something in translation. Aristocrats, yet another Vein Ripper Aristocrats deck, but this one a little bit heavier on the curve, right? We don't just skip from 3 to 6. We have Sheldred, we have Wandering Emperor, Sarah Paragon as a 4 of to get back, you know, the Delanies, the Wedding Announcements, the Tasas, and all of these 2 drops. Case of the Stash Skeleton is a great, you know, Aristocrats card. So we're trying this out in this Aristocrats build, and it's probably the best Aristocrats build that I've made this season. I know it's 100 cards. But that's the whole point of it, is to just play all the best Aristocrats cards. Try this deck. Take a screenshot. I know it's 100 cards. I know it. Try this deck. Try it out. This deck I'll give like a C+ to, though. But try it. Here's probably the best deck that I have in my collection. It's just Blue-White Control. Try Hard Control, we've labeled it, because, you know, it's the Blue-White Control deck. In Best of 1, I have to give this an A right now. It's actually kind of more of a Best of 3 deck, but it can still rip in Best of 1. And it's always kind of an eye roller when you come up against it. But if you want to win some games, it's one to play. So here it is. Stock, not doing anything different than at the beginning of the season. Blue-White Control. It'll win games. A. Straight up A. What is next? We got low curve Ellis, the lowest curve Ellis deck, I believe. Yeah, it is. 4 Greedy Freebooter, 2 Skrelv, 2 Conviction, 4 Novice Inspector, 4 Crawling Chorus. So really, really low on the curve here. And this is the one I've been waiting for because it's the best Ellis deck that I've built this season. Extraction Specialist is really good in here. Rite of Oblivion is a full 4-up because I finally realized that card was fantastic. Probably need the full 3 Gix, maybe need the Bat, but altogether I really enjoyed playing this deck this season. I can't really give it more than like a B-, but probably the best Aristocrats build we came up with. Orzhov Splash is named so because it's kind of a mono black deck that just plays like some key Orzhov cards, Soul Search, Rite of Oblivion, Invasion of Tovada, March, takes out some of the permanent types that mono black can't deal with Rite of Oblivion and March. So that's basically it. This is Orzhov mid-range again, so let's give it a B. It's probably a little better than a B, but Golgari Beans, this was a fun one, dude. I played so much of this deck this season, guys. This one plays a weird card, too. Stormceld Vanguard. You might not be able to see it behind my face, but a 6-mana 6/7 that can't be blocked by creatures power 2 or less. It's got a 2-mana sorcery adventure, destroying an artifact or enchantment. This card is really good. I find use for this card, the adventure half and the creature half, like every time. If you have Beanstalks out and you play the creature half, you get draw a card and get a 6/7, like can't be chump blocked for the most part. So I've really liked Vanguard in here, but you also just get all the heavy hitters. More Nissa, more Virtue, more Phyrexian Flesh Gorger, Aclazotz, Deadly Cover-Up, You have Virtue to get back your Flesh Gorgers and your Aclazotz, or your Sheoldreds, Topiary Stompers, Glissas. So, again, kind of a Golgari mid-range deck that top ends to Nissa and can just get in with all of its dudes if you drop a Nissa late game. But it can also kind of slow roll, remove some dudes, tear asunder, go for the throat, cut down, Sheoldred's Edict, sweepers like Path to Peril and Deadly Cover-Up. All of our creatures start at 3, so we don't care about Path to Peril, 1 Plains in the deck plus Celestis to help us cast the 6-mana Path to Peril if we need to. Up the Beanstalk draws all the cards, in the late game. Just a really, really fun deck, dude. It doesn't line up against everything well, obviously. Not everything does. I keep saying that, but I'm still going to give it a B+, dude. This deck was sick. I almost wanted to put it on the Patreon poll. I had that much fun with it this season. Highly recommended. Fairies. Bad deck. Really wanted to experiment with tempo. And Halo Forager is still a hell of a drug, It's a fine card, recasting Ego Drain and Cut Down and Go for the Throat. All good stuff, dude. But honestly, this deck isn't, in a good spot. It gets decent tempo, but it can't ride that tempo to the end game. Has been my problem with it so far in this standard. So I can't give it more than a C+. It's somewhere around there. Is it Delver? A couple of Bogles decks in a row here. Is it Delver? Yes, it is. 4 Monastery Swiftspear, 4 Delver of Secrets, and 51 drops in the deck. Deck is bad. We've got Shore Up in here, Spell Pierce, to help protect our dudes and stuff. But it's still never enough. Never enough. Not a good deck. C-. D? D+. D+. Gruul Punch is up next. Yet another Cacophony Scamp deck that's trying to protect its dudes with Rural Treatment, Tyvar Stand, Gia's Gift, which also gives the creature Trample, by the way, which is super sweet with Cacophony Scamp. But, Monstrous Rage, Audacity, we're really giving our Scamp Trample in this deck, our Scample. We've also got Fugitive Codebreaker to take advantage of all these, cards. Send copies, 5 through 7, I guess, of Monastery Swiftspear in here. I want this deck to be good. It's not. It's just not a good deck. C-. It's not good. D+? Sure. All right. We are at the very end here, guys. We made it. So let's skip this deck because it's the one we're playing tonight. Look at Blue Skies. Look all ahead. There's nothing but need a 4th Kitesail Larcenist. Only have 3. It's our best removal in the deck, but there's also Fading Hope in here, and Eaten by Piranhas, a surprisingly effective removal piece. If anything, it just makes our target lose flying, so we can fly over it. That's awesome. It also does all kinds of other stuff. Malevolent Hermit in here to disrupt sweepers and stuff like that, while also being a creature. Spectral Adversary to phase stuff out and help us get through. We can phase out flying guys to get through more attacks and stuff. Picklock Prankster to find some of the fairies in the deck, but also instants and sorceries. A lot of, early game stuff. Network Disruptor, Spyglass Siren, they're flying men, they get over. And then finally, Winged Portent is what we were setting up for the entire time. This is only ever going to cost us 3 mana. Draw a card for each creature you control with flying. Let's draw 3 or 4 cards. Why don't we do that? This deck is fun. This deck is sick. Will help you get your dailies if you have to cast blue spells. C+. Try it. Winged Portent is a stupid card, dude. Rallying Call is up next. The jankiest War Leader's Call deck in my collection because it plays 2 Rabble Rousing, everybody. This is a stupid combo with War Leader's Call. If you attack with a few guys, you get a few guys, War Leader's Call goes off, everyone has fun. Sarah Paragon's in here to get back the wedding announcements, the Urbrass Forge, the War Leader's Call, the Resolute Reinforcements. But the funniest trick in the deck is a Ganjo Uprising. If we have a War Leader's Call in play, not only will our creatures be bigger than our opponent's Samurai, because our opponent gets Samurai off this card too, but not only will our creatures be bigger than our opponents because we have a Anthem effect, but we also can just like fireball them, like 2 mana plus X. So if like X equals 4 or 5, that's 4 or 5 damage if we just have one War Leader's Call in play. Also Urbrass Forge to get reliable damage off call. Same thing with Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, these token creators, right? So we're trying to kind of one-shot them with Rabble Rousing shots and Ganjo Uprising shots. Burn Down the House can sweep the board and reset it if we want to, but it also puts 3 dudes on the board for War Leader's Call to trigger off of. So, you know, fun deck, but I can't give it more than like a B-. It doesn't work the way I want it to most of the time. Call Control. This is a much more control-oriented War Leader's Call deck. You see the 4 War Leader's Call. We got 4 Sunfall in here. 3 temporary lockdown to sweep the board, right? Wandering Emperor, again, a control card, you know. Sunset Revelry is a 4, a very control-y card. So we're just trying to win again with Virtue of Loyalty, Wandering Emperor, Urbrass Forge, Wedding Announcement. We do make tokens, right, to trigger off call. But call, again, is always the worst card in these decks, and you'd feel like they'd be serviced better without calling them and just play better cards, you know. But I'm still going to give this a B- too. These are fun decks to play. I like War Leader's Call, but... last deck we'll look at before the deck we're playing tonight is Drinkin' Delny, everybody. I just built this deck. I played 4 games with it, and I love it. Love this deck. Wisp Drinker Vampire, dude. This card is so fun, dude. It's just another, like, Ellisil core in our deck. I'm down to 2 Ellis because I'm playing 4 of this card, along with Bloodletter in the 4-drop slot to get extra damage off of Ellis and Wisp Drinker, right? But we've also got Brutal Cathar, Lorna of the Third Path, Welcoming Vampire draws cards, Werefox Bodyguard to go along with our Brutal Cathar. That's a lot of, you know, removal. 1 copy of Preacher, I kind of want more. 1 Tomik, 1 Tesa, so a lot of fun ofs in the deck. 2 Amalia for our life gain because we get life gain off of Wisp Drinker, we get life gain off of Lunark Veteran. Thalia's in the deck because we don't play any non-creatures. And then Phyrexian Missionary is going to help us get cards back from the graveyard. So, fun deck, baby. Having a lot of fun today specifically with this deck, but I don't think it's janky enough to play tonight. We have to play the jankiest thing possible to kind of finish MKM's, you know, stream standard before the next spoiler season starts. And that ain't this deck, but I'm going to give this deck a tentative B. You know, it's probably worse than that, but I've been having too much fun with it today. But let's look at what we're doing tonight. It's Food Fight. If I had to rank this deck right off the top of my head, probably an F. Probably just, let's say it's an F in terms of like competitive viability. But here's what we're doing with this stupid thing. I've already clipped a bit of it onto Twitter. In case you didn't see that, it's a 3-card combo. It's really kind of a 2-card combo. We've got Food Fight in this deck. 2 mana enchantment. Artifacts you control have 2. Sacrifice this artifact. Deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of permanents named Food Fight you control. So we can sack our artifacts to shock stuff. Is the idea behind this. So, got to get a lot of artifacts onto the table. How are we doing that? Well, Forensic Gadgeteer will give us an Investigate whenever we cast an artifact spell. I don't think we have quite enough artifact spells in this deck at current iteration, by the way, to really take advantage of this line of text on the card. But luckily, there's another line of text here. Activated abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate, but it can't reduce that mana to less than 1 mana. So you can't activate stuff for free. That's fine. That's fine. We just want to be able to tap and sacrifice any artifacts that we happen to have out. We don't even have to tap them. Just, you know, sacrifice any artifact that we have in play for 1 mana, right? So now we play a bunch of stuff that makes artifacts. We got Novice Inspector, body that makes an artifact. We got Spyglass Siren, body makes an artifact. Voldar and Epicure, body makes an artifact. You know, Surge Engine is an artifact that gets in a lot of damage. Subterranean Schooner is an artifact. Gleaming Geardrake, another creature that makes an Investigate, but is also, in this case, an artifact can get big over the course of the game. We got 1 Tezzeret to help draw cards. Also, makes at least 1 activation per turn of a Food Fight thing, or just a clue token, you know, free, so that's nice. And then can make stuff big, too. For the -2, makes stuff big. Also can draw us a lot of cards if we get the ultimate, but I don't expect it's going to happen very often. The last card to talk about is Officious Interrogation, aside from the Voltage Surge, which kind of obviously goes in the deck and should probably be a 4 of. I don't think this deck needs white. The only reason I'm playing white is this card. Officious Interrogation is a 2-mana instant, Azorius colors. This spell costs blue, white, or more to cast for each target beyond the first. Choose any number of target players. Investigate X times, where X is the total number of creatures those players control. So you can just target yourself if you've had a good, couple of opening turns and get like 3 clue tokens off of this. Or you can target your Boros opponent and get like 5 clue tokens. Or if you happen to have the breathing room, just target both of you at the end of your opponent's turn and get like 10 clue tokens. And then you can sacrifice all those clue tokens to your food fight and kill your opponent. So that's what we're trying to do, is kind of like block on board with our little guys that also create incidental artifacts. Get in extra damage with Surge Engine, maybe get an attack in with Subterranean Schooner, and then finish them off with food fight reach damage, And the deck is bad. I'm pretty sure the deck is also 61 cards. You may notice that. I do not care. I could not care any less than I do at this very moment that this deck is 61 cards. So, in case you wanted to point that out to me, I see that. I know that. That's how I respond. So let's go into the arena tonight and do this. As far as, I guess this is also the end of the 100 decks video if that hits YouTube. So spread love and be kind. Let's play some games.